Hola, chicas. Welcome to Encuentras Your Voice podcast, where Latina voices are amplified by sharing their powerful journeys from ancestry to authenticity, giving voice to generations past, often silenced or erased, while showcasing the aha moment of our guests when they embraced their authenticity and soared into success. I'm your host, Consuelo Crosby, here with you every Wednesday at a new time in this season 8. Given our expanding global audience, con gusto, we are dropping new episodes just after midnight on Wednesdays. So no matter where you are in the world, we are together, leaning into the valuable stories that resonate with you, adding a place of belonging, and sharing resources that may help make life just that much easier. Plus, meet your next best amiga after hearing their story every week. We're coming to you from the sunny Catalonia coast of Spain, our second studio for Encuentras Your Voice podcast, and wishing you were all here live in person to do some fabulous episodes on the cultura. This last February episode of the month of transformation wraps up our mindset for that new lunar year of the snake, where we set out to embrace growth, shed anything that doesn't support us, and listen to the guidance of the women we have had on in this illustrious month. Now, all of this involves risk. Yes, that dark and scary word that holds us back from making that next big step in life or business. But what if there was a book that guided us with empathy, understanding, and real life stories that makes us feel seen, and even helps us understand what kind of risk taker we really are? Because according to our guests, we are all risk takers. So what better way to face transformation, embracing that risk, than with the mujer who literally wrote the book on embracing risk to fuel success? Her book, Building a Beautiful Business con Confianza, hit the bookstores yesterday, February 25th. So you are so lucky today to listen in on the gems from the source and then run on out to your local bookstore and grab a copy for yourself. Rosalie Ennes is a proud Portuguese Ecuadorian American whose illustrious career benefited global corporations in risk assessment and business partnerships and internal operations. Rosalie's super trilingual powers took her around the world, and yet her heart pulses with the comunidad. She is founder of Portequa Consulting, a Latina-owned consulting firm that specializes in helping entrepreneurs identify and get ahead of risks in order to become the change makers they were meant to be. And as always, there's the little tidbit that you would never guess about this risk strategist and ultimate planner that we discover by the end of the episode. So lean back and get comfy to meet your next best amiga, Rosalie Ennes. Welcome to Encuentras Your Voice podcast, Rosalie. It's so fun having you here today because this topic, I love it. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so well, and I'm very excited to be here to talk about this special topic.
Yes, we have caught you at a celebratory time in your life, and we're going to get into it. But first, as we always do, we love celebrating and honoring our ancestors and creating a living archive of the diaspora here that brought us to this moment. So we'd love to hear your heritage story if you'd like to share.
Yes, absolutely. La cultura is so important. So definitely I am Ecuadorian, Portuguese American. So my mom is from Ecuador, my dad is from Portugal, and we're here. I was born here. So it's really been beautiful to see the three cultures kind of come together in myself. And they've definitely influenced a lot of who I am and my traditions and what I've tried to bring forward. And yeah, just absolutely great. And you'll see that a little bit later when I talk about the book as well. I brought the cultura into the book.
Perfect. Yes, there you go. A little bit of a sneak peek of what's coming, your book. And we're still not getting into it. Still not getting into it yet because we'd love to know more about you because I think, especially on this episode, who you are goes hand in hand with what you've accomplished. So what was it like? You emphasize la cultura, you emphasize the beautiful trajectory of your family here. What was it like for you growing up in two cultures, living in a third culture?
Absolutely. It was fun, a little bit chaotic at times, but I think I got the best of both worlds in some cases. And not even the cultura, but how your parents kind of raise you. I grew up in San Jose, California. My parents divorced when I was young. And so I grew up with my dad and my mom, both still in San Jose, but my dad was a little bit more of a homebody, very much like studious, instilling in us that we needed, my brother and I, that we needed to study and do well in school. And so we got to kind of do that on his end. But then on my mom's end, it was more like social. Let's go hang out with the cousins. Let's go with the tias. And so we spent a lot of time at my aunt's house growing up. And so it was nice to kind of have the mix of both, where I got to be the quiet time, but I also got the social time. So I knew that we would go out and do something on my mom's end. And that's where she also would take us to travel as well. And so she had the travel bug.
Cool.
And so we would travel back to Ecuador to see family because we still have a lot of family there. So a lot of summers we would head there, or we would go and take a trip somewhere else to either Spain or Hawaii. Those are some of the memorable ones growing up. And then obviously being American, you have your traditions here as well. And so it was really beautiful to kind of see those three come together, and not just in culture, but in the language. So speaking Spanish growing up, speaking Portuguese as well, and then English as well. And so that's helped me not just when I was younger, interact with my cousins and whatnot, but also as I've been older, I've been able to use that language powerfully at work as well.
Wow, that is a huge gift, a treasure trove from your family, from your cultures blending together and really instilling a lot of different aspects of, like you said, the skill set, the skill level coming into your profession. Did you see yourself when you're growing up in all this, that was actually occurring? Did it feel like it was empowering, or did it feel like it was just one more thing?
No, I think it felt empowering, but that's a good question. I mean, I think we all have some experience of we're the translators, we're the IT people, we're the ones trying to help, our first gen parents, especially on my mom's side, help them through and do things and understand the American culture and the system and whatnot. And so in some ways, like, yes, there was additional work and maybe it's like one more thing, but in other ways, I think it was really empowering, because if you see, you're able to translate for people, and like if somebody needs help, you feel like you can be the one to step in and help support them, be like, oh, this is what they want, let me translate for them. So I think knowing the language was helpful. And then also in high school and in college, like being able to take those, not just speak it, but take the classes and learn how to write it as well and write essays. I think it's very, very empowering. And I was fortunate enough to also do study abroad while I was in college as well, to Portugal and to Spain. So using the Spanish was, I would say, incredibly empowering, more so than one extra thing to do.
Wow. Yeah, that took you hugely full circle. Especially, I've heard this often. It's one thing to speak it and speak it at home. It's a completely other thing to study it at high school level, college level, and then writing. Okay, exactly. Now you've entered a professional space, which we will learn really did benefit you. But as you're going through this and growing up, entering into your career, was there ever a moment that you struggled with your cultural identity, or were you, again, working with it to what you wanted to have in life?
I think I was always working with it. And I don't know if sometimes I think I always just worked hard, and it was like, whatever I work hard at, I'm going to achieve. And eventually I did get there. I think it was, I don't know if ignorance is bliss is the right word, but it's almost like I didn't really realize how hard I was working compared to maybe some peers in the professional arena. Whereas like later, now that we've had more discussions and stories around like certain privileges or like how much more we have to work versus others, like I don't even think I realized that really in the early professional career. I was just like, okay, we're all being evaluated the same way. Whereas later I can kind of see, and especially as you move up the ranks of corporate world, which is where I spent 13 years, you can kind of see like, okay, certain people will get the promotion much easier. And like looking back on the 3 or 4 promotions I had, it was much harder.
Yeah. So do you think in all of that, what was that aha moment then when that came to light? What the aha moment of, oh, this is my self-identity. This is my culture in an American system.
Yeah, I mean, I think so I kind of went into it thinking like not really knowing. And then once you start getting exposed to it, it's really an aha, like, okay, this is happening. Like, there's nothing I can change about my identity. And I love my identity and how I've grown up. And I know it's powerful. And maybe some people won't see it. But for me, being proud of it made me just kind of lean in more. And it's like, okay, now that I know this is happening, talk about it more, share stories, like share your voice, like talk to others about your experience so that are maybe younger or coming up the rank. How can you ascend even though you have these types of challenges? And I really love that. I mean, especially recently, I feel like there's so many people sharing their stories, whether it's on a podcast, on a blog, on YouTube videos. And so we're able to relate a lot and realize that we're not so alone in our experiences. And then we can use that to support each other.
I love that. Yes, I love that. That goes across every generation. And I really appreciate that answer for feeling that we're very tied together. There's a lot of commonality regardless of our stories. And then being able to hear them and share them, we don't feel alone with it, because I think that can get really big. That can feel really heavy sometimes. You have a very unique choice of your career path. Tell us a little bit. First of all, let's describe what your career is and how did you choose it? How did you get there?
Yeah. So I'm an auditor, which I know most people want to run for the hills when they hear, are you a auditor? Are you like IRS auditor? Are you an accountant? And I'm like, no, I'm not the scary kind of IRS auditor. I wanted to audit companies. And so we rely on companies' financials if we buy their stock or if we spend with them. Like, we want to know that they're operating well. And so there's an audit that happens every year on the finances. And then internally, they also have audits to be able to make sure that the people and the processes and their vendors and customers are set up right. They're processing orders correctly. And so there's internal audit and then there's the external audit. So I have done both. I started out in external audit. I knew I wanted to do business originally, and back in college, I studied business administration with a focus in accounting because I knew that I love that and I wanted to pursue my CPA. So I ended up at a big four firm doing the external audit, and that was great. And part of the reason, even though it's auditing, is that you're seeing so many aspects of the company. And so you can see like how they manufacture products and how they, add vendors, add customers, how they decide which products to put out there, how they look at the pricing, all of that. And so you really get a deep look at how a company or a business operates. So doing that externally and then moving internally, then you get an even deeper sense of how that specific company operates. And so that was my first 13 years was working in audit. And getting that experience and getting to travel as well. And that's where I mentioned, growing up, you use your language, study abroad, I use the language, but then also at work, because I spent the majority of a career at a big public global company, we got to audit abroad as well. And so some of the countries I didn't speak the language, but in Latin America, I did. And so in Brazil and in Chile and in Mexico, like I was able to use the language to be able to audit and make it a little bit easier for the team because they speak English, but sometimes you just want to revert to your native tongue. And so we could also speak in Spanish. I think I reached a point where I was having some misalignments, I think, with corporate America, as many of us do. And we really want to create those safe spaces where we can share our voices. And so I think I reached a point where I was like, I have the skill set of auditing, which means managing risks for a company and helping them achieve their goals without any big hiccups or help them foresee any challenges they could have. But take all of that skill set and really help entrepreneurs, specifically Latina entrepreneurs, women of color, people of color, the queer community, because we're overlooked and we have so much potential. And so I wanted to leverage what I know to help enable us and enable our businesses, because we are starting businesses at record rates. So I kind of pivoted a couple of years ago, and then I started my own business consulting firm. So business and risk consulting. It's called Port Equa Consulting, which Port Equa is Portuguese and Ecuadorian together because we brought the cultura into the business's name as well. And so now I'm really working, with people who care, who want to build a business that's great, that impacts, their themselves, but then also their communities. And so really helping them manage through their risks is what I'm focused on now. And it's been kind of a beautiful full circle moment to be able to leverage all of your skill sets and what you do moving forward.
I love that. I was going to say, definitely full circle. Definitely always having at the center your son, your cultura, and the skill set, learn from it, and coming back to the community is a really beautiful journey. I feel like you've always known yourself in order to take that journey. And I think risk is an iffy word that not everyone associates themselves with. But I think you have a different point of view on risk.
Yeah, I mean, I think people, like you said, are scared of risk. And there are risks. Like there are things that can go wrong. But in order to achieve our goals and to reach our potential and, make the money impact the community, you have to take risks. And I think we know that. And I think inherently as a cultura, we take so many risks. And we know that our ancestors are taking risks, every generation has, and we continue to. It's just something that we don't necessarily do it in a structured way. We don't think about it necessarily actively. Like we know we're taking risks, but we kind of leave it at that. And so what I'm trying to bring now is more education around the different types of risks and how actually paying attention to them could help you and benefit you and really empower you at the end of the day to achieve those goals. And so if you know eyes wide open what you're kind of going into, then you'll be much more successful. And there are a lot of mistakes that businesses have made, and those are the stories I bring into my big project, which is coming up, which is talk more about. But I want us to learn about how risk can empower us and learn what risks are out there, and learn by using the stories of other people so that we can not make those mistakes or prevent them or at least lessen the impact of them. I mean, I prefer that we make new mistakes, right? So there's always going to be something.
Love that.
So the part of managing risk is that you're never going to manage everything to the T and say, like, if you work with me, nothing's ever bad's going to happen. That's not true. They're going to happen. It's just how you react, how you plans for it, but then also how you react to it. So.
Oh, I love that. That's really powerful because the whole time I'm thinking, okay, at what point do you ever get comfortable with risk as a business? And we're talking small businesses, Latina-owned entrepreneurs. And you're right, we are expanding. The Latinas in small business has proven to be the fastest growing population of business owners. So it's perfect that you're speaking to them. And at that point, it sounds as if assessing or planning, being prepared for risk has to happen before you start the company, but it's also going on as you're doing your business. Is that on point?
That's on point. Absolutely. It's an iterative process. You always have to monitor it. And so you're identifying the risks, you're assessing them, you're responding to them based on your comfort level, and then you have to monitor them at the end of the day because it's not a one and done, and it's going to shift. And even throughout your life, I mean, if you think about personal life, you're also taking risks, and where you might have taken one risk at one point in your life, you might not take it later. And so the same thing applies to business. And that's something that I'd like to, tell people too. Like you're managing risks even though you don't know it. You're already making risk decisions. So this is just that actual risk lens around it so that you can frame it in a way and now you know why you're making certain decisions or why you don't make certain decisions as well.
That would take, it seems, and I think you touch on this, we'll touch on this later, but it seems as though as a business owner, and we start businesses for different reasons. A lot of them is like, we can't take our corporate setting and we can't take the toxic work environment. There's a lot of different reasons, a lot of good ones. Like there's a niche missing that doesn't represent us, our needs, our wants and everything. But it seems that one piece that's really vital in the way you're describing everything is that we should know who we are. We should know ourselves and how we approach risk. And you want to speak to that a little bit before we get into your big project?
Yeah, no, great question. And exactly right. Like everyone is going to figure out their approach to risk. And some might be more, wild risk takers. Some might be consciously calculated in how they attempt their risks. And some might just want to know everything A to Z, have everything planned out and be very powerfully prepared. And so knowing where you are as far as awareness is the first step. And then that way you take the actions that you need. When I speak to people about risk and whatnot, it's really about finding what your risk profile is. Like, what do you feel comfortable with? And then you can take the right decision. So it's not a one size fits all by any means.
There's power in that. The Latinas are the fastest, largest growing population of business owners, and yet they're overlooked. From your experience, where does that come from?
It's a very loaded question and deep.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, it comes from the system and the system that we're coming up in. Because from a generational perspective, like, we came here with nothing, probably 1, 2, maybe 3 generations ago for the most part. And we still haven't, I guess, accumulated the generational wealth that others have. And we haven't had like that history or that knowledge or those connections that are deep rooted that have those funding resources that, could propel us. And so whereas, starting a business for us, like a lot of the times we're using our savings, maybe family can help us with a little bit. But then there's others who can just, tap into a wealth of funding. I'm thinking back at a specific panel I was on, and somebody just, tapped their friend, and they were able to collect like $10 million, or maybe it was even more. And so it's like that's something that I necessarily have access to.
Wow.
And so it's like, it's really like we're starting from, we have to build this ecosystem. So we haven't typically been part of that ecosystem. And so it's like finding our way in or building our own, which I think is what we're finding. We're trying to build our own ecosystem so that we can all support each other. And then it becomes, beautiful, where I support you in your services. Like, I need this product, I get it from this person. I need this funding. And so we become the funders. We become the providers of the product or the service. So I think we're making progress, but ultimately the capital needs to be there. And so to keep working at it, which is hard, is really hard. And sometimes we don't have the option of necessarily failing at an idea, or let's try this because I have $1 million to play with. It's like we have to get it right, or we go back to kind of the 9 to 5. And so it is kind of a harsh reality. I mean, when you talk about it that way. And so we have to make decisions because we still have to live our lives, and we have a livelihood or potentially people to provide for. And so it's tough decisions that we have to make. And so changing the system is really hard. And so it's nice to see that all of us, we're starting businesses. We want to create those safe spaces. It's just going to take time, where we need to really tap into our resources in our community. So as somebody rises up and has that success, they're pulling others up with them.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I had a whole vision of that. And I'm hoping, without having any kind of arrogance in this comment, that Siete Foods will be a model that we can all learn from and try and grow the same with. And that's an exciting one when it comes to someone within the community who might be part of the angel vesting sources going forth, because they can see the power.
Our community struggles with a little bit because we want the companies to succeed, but then if they get bought out, we almost think like, did they sell out? And there's been conversations around that, and it's like, but we kind of need them to, succeed and go mainstream so that they can become the angels investors. And I think we attach ourselves to our businesses very closely, whereas other demographics might not. So they want to succeed and they want to sell. Whereas we love to, nurture it, grow the company. And then it's like, do we want to let go of it? And I love that attachment. And right now I'm attached to my company, but it's like, is that hurting us in a sense? And I've battled with this just internally and had discussions and debates, because I see both sides. And I think it's something our community just has to figure out.
For a lot of us, first gen, second gens, the expectation when we go into careers is that we will get a job, a very good job, and we will hold on to that job as long as possible. And to take risk in any other direction, whether it's change fields or go into your own business, is definitely frowned upon. And yet there are reasons why to let go. Have you seen maybe some of these reasons or red flags why it justifies leaving a corporate setting?
Yeah. I mean, I think I alluded to this earlier, but I experienced some of that. And you definitely see red flags amongst my own experience, but then also even with auditing and with the job that I was doing, we would do cultural assessments where we would send out surveys and see how employees felt, and did they feel comfortable speaking to their superior? Did they feel like they could have some type of 360 feedback mechanism, or did they want one? And so that's what we kind of use to say, should we talk to this department, or should we talk to this one? Where should we dig a little deeper? Because especially when businesses grow and you have more teams, the different teams are going to develop almost microcultures from what the company is putting out there. And so each culture, you want to make sure that you have a pulse on it. And so from an auditing perspective, that would give us the pulse. And then from my own perspective, same situation. Like if I'm answering those questions, like, do I feel comfortable to speak up? Like if I ever am kind of contesting something or kind of agreeing, like how is that received? Like, is it received like, okay, I take your point, or is it more just shut down? Or are you being interrupted where you feel like, I know it's probably happened to a lot of us. We either get interrupted or we said an idea and then nobody really acknowledged it. And then 2 seconds later, someone else says it and all of a sudden it's the best idea ever. And I just said that.
My body just clenched.
Yeah. So
yes. For having to say, I just said that out loud.
Like, I just said that. But then it's like, if you say that, that might also look bad. And so I think that you start to collect data points, whether I'm doing cultural audit or for my own self, where I collected so many data points, which I referred to earlier as misalignments, where I was like, okay, now like it's time to leave and find a different space where I feel valued, where I feel safe, that I can speak up. And like for me, with entrepreneurship, it was like, I need to go and create my own space. Like if the corporate environment is not going to provide it for me, then I'm going to go and create my own space.
Yeah, I love that. I just want to say flat out, one, congratulations on a fabulous career, and you're being your own business owner, you're entrepreneur, very successful in a field that I can't imagine there's very many women or Latinas. That just seems a little prickly on every aspect. So very much congratulations, felicidades for that. And yet, here we are, dropping this episode the day after the very big success. So here's your spotlight. Tell us what's happening.
Amazing. So yes, yesterday, Build a Beautiful Business con Confianza debuted. So it's my first book. It was published and launched yesterday. Super excited about it. I'm excited for it to be out in the world. It's been a huge labor of love that's brought in this, all the technical expertise that we talked about, my background, the cultura, there's Spanish in it. And so it's this collection that I hope that everyone enjoys. It's a collection of stories or cautionary tales for entrepreneurs as they're building their businesses. And I talk through what are the risks that, maybe they could have paid attention to. And then debrief with some concepts and some frameworks so that you can take those away. And then at the end, there's really a call to action, which could be either a reflection, it could be a simple exercise that you can do in your business, or it could be something bigger like a risk assessment. So I really tried to create this comprehensive guide of how to build a beautiful business. And when I say beautiful, I mean beautiful inside and out, like we want to be. It's not just let me portray on the outside we're this great business, but it's really inside, like the people that run it, the processes that you operate, like how you lead it as well. So yeah, it goes across, leadership, finances, change, vendor processes. I talk about fraud. It really is a collection of everything that I've kind of gone through and all these lessons learned that I want to share with the world. So excited for it to be out there and excited for you all to read it.
It's so valuable. It's so valuable because this is just a topic, like I said, we go into work and we go into our small businesses with hardly any knowledge. And we tend to rely on the organizations to either know it, which often they don't either, or to take care of us within it, which often they don't either. So such a valuable book, let alone for the entrepreneurs. This is going to be like their Bible of how to approach business. And I love that the stories must bring up, obviously, experiences that a new entrepreneur couldn't even consider because there's only so much exposure you're going to get. Is that on point?
Yeah. There'll be stories in there that you'll already relate to. There'll be stories that you might not relate to yet, but you could kind of see yourself in. And there even will be stories that you probably don't even see yourself in, but maybe future you might be in that situation where you're growing, not in that mistake necessarily. But I really wanted the book to evolve with you. So at any stage that you're reading it, you are going to see yourself. And then as you come back to it, you're going to maybe see it in a different light. So it's really about growing with you as you emerge as an entrepreneur, as you grow, and then as you scale. And I talk about those kind of different stages and what that looks like. But yeah, it's going to evolve with you. And I want it to motivate you and inspire you, but also challenge you a little bit. So I know when I was going through the beta reader process and I shared some of the thoughts and in the outline and whatnot. And so some of the thoughts that came back were like, I don't know if this is going to like overwhelm me in a sense, like let me absorb it a little more. And then she came back to me like the next day and she's like, okay, no, this is great. Like it initially might shock you and might challenge you a little bit, but then it's really good to have this information. And so really that's what now I'm kind of prefacing to people that it will challenge you a little bit, but it's meant to. And don't give up on it, come back to it because it will help you.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I think if you're in a Latina, if you're that firstborn daughter, you're probably used to all of that demand, a little bit of the burden, but it really does develop an immense skill set and an immense success as you're exemplifying yourself. I can imagine. I would love to read it. I can't wait to read it and add it to my little collection right there. My Latina authors that have been on this show, it's going to be right there. But now I have a question, because you spoke of earlier understanding yourself as a business owner, understanding yourself as a risk taker. How do people understand what kind of risk taker they are?
So with the book, I will be releasing a quiz. So it'll be live and on the site. And when you buy the book, there is a QR code in there that takes you to the beautiful business center. And so there's going to be a quiz on what kind of risk taker you are as an entrepreneur. So you'll have the book to kind of help guide you, but then you take the quiz and you'll be able to really evaluate and kind of get, an initial profile of like, where do you land and what does that mean for you? Like, what are the benefits of it? What are opportunities or things that you need to watch out for? And then kind of what's next as far as like, how do you manage your risk? So I'm excited for y'all to take the quiz to see where you fall. There's 4 different profiles. So I am curious, and Consuelo, you can let me know later on which one you fall into.
Yeah, I'm super curious because I am that person who just like goes. I say I'm a successful risk taker. I don't know if that looks like it from the outside, but I don't worry. I just kind of jump at things. I always feel like, but I'm not sure. I have to take the quiz to see what that says.
All of it. So it's not like, you need to manage your risks to, A through Z. Everyone has to do the same steps. It's you do it until you're comfortable. And so if you're a little bit of a wild risk taker, that's fine. And you know that, and then you move forward with that in mind.
I love that. Yeah, I was on a podcast, More Than Your Age. And she was asking about, because I climbed the glaciers in Patagonia back, it's getting almost 20 years ago. So there was no Instagram, there was no tours, there was a couple of guys who took us out on a glacier. And looking back at it now, and I have to show the picture, huge risk when I look at the ice cave I was in front of. And if I slipped, I would have gone to the Middle Earth.
Yeah, that's a huge risk.
And she asked, well, how did you prepare? And I'm like, oh, was I supposed to? Like, no, I don't even climb the wall at the gym. Like, I had no idea. I just did it. And she was shocked. At that point, she was shocked. And this is where what you're bringing into our conversation about preparation, it's like, ooh, oops. I have to take that into more consideration, I think. And I love how you bring up it changes, so that people themselves can see that they will grow, not just their businesses, but they should grow.
Exactly. Because personally, I mean, when you were younger, you might have done one thing. When you're older, like, maybe I shouldn't do that. Once you have kids, maybe you don't want to do. Once you have a pet, maybe it changes. There's things that we go through in life that will change the trajectory of how we feel about risk. And I think your profile might change, or maybe it's just within that same profile, you just find a different way to adapt to it.
We grow, we change, our lives change, we change our minds. Does that help when it comes to business, be able to evaluate or give yourself grace and not feeling it all has to be done right now?
Yes, absolutely. We need to give ourselves some grace and prioritize. Like, we all have wonderful ideas, and I talk about this in the book. Like, we have so many ideas, and even myself, I'm like, I want to release this and this and that, and this service and this course and whatnot, and maybe a podcast someday. But it's like you have so many ideas, you have to prioritize, and you have to kind of give yourself grace that, yeah, I can do these things, but I need to prioritize. Otherwise, I risk not doing any of them, which is sometimes what ends up happening is we try to split our focus too much, and then we risk not actually achieving any of them. So definitely being careful with that is important.
Is there guidance in the book, or is there additional guidance somewhere to understand which is the best route to take in that moment? Like where to start almost in that moment?
Yes. So there is a SIARM framework. So SIARM. And so I talk about it in the book. And this is really strategizing what do you want to do? Like, what is your goal? We strategize, like, what is it that you want to achieve? And then I is the identify. So identify what are the risks involved, like what could happen, what could go wrong. So you've strategized, you've identified the risks, and then you assess the risks to yourself. So like maybe maybe there's a risk that something will happen, but I already like have something in place. So I'm okay with that. Like I'm covered there. Like I've already done research. So I'm not worried about that risk happening. Like, and then R is respond. So once you've identified and you've assessed those risks against what you have in your ecosystem or in your business, then you respond. So if there's something that's missing and you're like, okay, I'm not quite comfortable there, let me put something in there. Let me respond to that. If you're comfortable, then there's no response needed. So that's where the SIAR comes in. And then the M is what we talked about is monitor. So it's not a one and done to come back to. So that's really the guide that I use throughout the book is the CRM framework of how do you make decisions in your business? So that could apply at any level for micro decisions or any big decisions, like strategize first, identify the risks, assess them against what you have in place, and then respond. And then the monitor comes afterwards.
Wow. Okay. I feel like that should just also be a life template. I think regardless of business, I think, wow, that I've been clicking through like my respond can sometimes be, I'll deal with it later. Rather than actually putting something in place. Because again, it can feel so overwhelming. It can feel too big or not knowing how to respond. What do I need? Things like that. Do you have a risk story that you didn't see coming that put you in a place of, oh, I didn't have a response?
It's a great question. First thing personally that comes to mind is around moving to New York was my response. I originally wanted to go and do a rotation with the Big Four company that I was at, and I wanted to go abroad, and that didn't work out. And my response to that was to come to New York. And I was like, that was next on my list. Like both of them were, risks, and in evaluating kind of what I was strategizing on and identifying everything, I was like, all right, well, if I'm not going to go abroad, like my response is going to be to come to New York, which was a risk in itself. And I'm happy with everything and how everything turned out. And that was my response. And I felt comfortable with it because I had money saved up. Like I had already kind of started to do research of where I could live. So I got to my comfort level as far as risks. And then I moved here and it worked out well. Bringing up the story about New York, I had bought a sofa that I didn't realize wasn't going to fit. It was going to fit in my apartment, but it wasn't going to fit through the hallway because there was a weird hallway to go up the stairs. So I got the movers, they came in, and then it was something I didn't calculate. Like I didn't think of all the risks of the sofa not fitting into, it would fit into my place, but not fit in through this first hallway that it needed to get through. I didn't quite have a response in that moment to that. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, those movers have to leave. They can't just take the cup because it wasn't third party that I had bought it from. And so I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, do I just leave it outside on the street? Somebody takes it, like, I guess. I called a couple of friends. One of them didn't take it. The other one ended up being able to take it. And it worked out. So my response to that, I didn't initially have a response to my couch not fitting, was to, find alternatives and figure out which one I was comfortable with. So my friends.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Instant flashback to the Friends episode. A pivot.
Exactly. I was literally thinking that. In my there was no pivot. Like it was just gonna fit. You have to cut, the couch if you just to like get it up. No. I got a much smaller couch the second time I assessed that risk. So that won't happen.
Okay. So even to someone who seems to have planned well accordingly in order to take the risks, there's still unknowns. There's still things you don't know until you know, right?
Yeah.
I think that's
you
a lot of it.
You can, but there's always going to be things that happen. So my couch one is one that I always remember, will fondly remember.
When I'm hearing from you in your own life experience at being a big risk taker, is that you seem to plan very much in your thinking, so that before there's a risk, before you run the template, there is this knowledge to plan in advance. If it's just a mindset, should we be creating or honing a planning type of mindset in our own lives, let alone our businesses?
Yeah, I think there should always be that element of it. Now, I am a planner by nature, like super, super planner. I've probably that my friends and family. So with that level of planning, probably not so much. But some element of strategic thinking or strategic planning, especially as you own a business, is extremely valuable and will be key for your success. At least if you're thinking about it in that mindset, then that already helps you. So the first part in my book is part one is mindset. So I really talk through what things are you thinking about or thoughts you might have as a business owner. So like maybe I'm doing too much, or like, how did I end up here? Like I question myself a lot. So I talk through kind of those elements too, and how just having a risk mindset will already set you up, even if you don't implement the strategy and the processes and the detailed operations of it. You'll start out with that mindset. So absolutely, mindset is very important.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I always feel like in some way, this book is always giving us space to just exhale, because it can seem very frightening. It can seem very daunting. And then you always allow these little pockets of, it's okay, come over here and relax.
Exactly. And there's with the Spanish in the book too, it's almost like, don't run for the hills, like you'll be fine. Like, okay, but like, come back to me, like, no te asustes, like don't run away. Like I have things in there like that, because I really want the book to feel a safe space to learn and to be a little bit challenged. But you still want to be motivated. You want to feel like it is a conversation between friends. And I'm not trying to just like teach at you, but really just share stories and have you learn along the way.
I do have some sense of assessment. I call it the 6 scenarios. So in a matter of seconds, though, I will run, what's the worst thing that can happen? What's the best thing that can happen? And everything in between, I don't really worry about. Because if I can't really handle the worst thing happening, then I won't do it. And scaling back from that makes it feel like it's a different end game. It's a different experience. It's different. I may not want to do it at all at that point. So what do you think of that type of?
I think that's great. Like you have to find what works for you, and you're doing your own form of assessment, and you figure out what scenario works. So worst case, best case, and then, all right, I'm going forward with it. I think that's perfect. Like if that is your assessment. And I talked about the CRM framework. Yeah. I talked about like the different stages of your business, but also just when you're assessing a risk and you come to a decision, you really either accept the risk and move forward, you avoid the risk and you decide not to do it, you mitigate the risk, which means you do something just to get you comfortable, or you transfer the risk. So those are really the actions you can take on. So it's AAMT, not really a nice acronym, but that's just accept, avoid, mitigate, or transfer. And so when you transfer something, that's usually if you like when you get insurance, that's the easiest example. That you're transferring the risk and you're like, okay, somebody else is going to handle it for me in case it does happen. And so in those cases, like you said, like you're making a quick decision and then you're either accepting it or you're avoiding it. And like, all right, let's move forward.
I like the sense of transfer. Does transfer in one step beyond, could that also be that, I don't want to deal with that, but somebody else can?
Yeah, definitely could be. So it's either like you don't want to deal with it. It can also be that you just don't have the time to like learn something or do something. And there's a risk there if like, for example, you're trying to do your own trademark. Like, will it fail? Will I not go through because I didn't fill out the form properly? So you assess your risk and you take an action. And sometimes you're like, okay, well, I'm going to hire, a lawyer to help me through the trademark process, which
I love that.
So like, there's a lot of things like for myself, as far as risks, like I will learn a lot of things. So sometimes I'm like, okay, I'll just learn that. Like, that's fine. Like graphic design or website, like I've been able to do that on my own. But there are certain things like trademark or like, and even in publishing this book, like I did want some expertise to support me. So I helped hire people, and that is in a sense, transferring the risk a little bit.
Yeah, I think that really helps. And it's a good reminder that we don't have to do it all again, because I think that's so much in our mindset. We feel like we have to do it all. We have to do it all by ourselves. And there's risk in alone for me, like letting someone else do it. I mean, that's, to me, that's risk. To me, that's the biggest risk. Right?
We're not doing it. Yeah.
Yes. Is there any risk when it comes to the technology? When I hear a lot of, sadly so, a lot of small businesses, when it comes to their e-commerce sites, there's a lot going on there that really puts them at risk. And yet, I don't know how much can be mitigated yet with what's out there.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of scenarios of things that could go wrong. And sometimes you have to accept the risk. There's nothing you can really do. You just move forward knowing that there is risk there, which can also be okay. But like when you think about customers and e-commerce, it's like, is that the only place that I have a site, or do I have other sites that I use to sell products? Like if you're using like Instagram to sell products, but then you have a Shopify site, like, can you diversify a little bit to diversify the risk? Or like, what if Shopify goes down? Like, do I have those customer emails? Like, can I still keep my business going? Like, thinking through those scenarios is kind of important. And that's more of like a scenario planning analysis or like a business continuity. Same thing for Instagram. There's always a lot of stories like Instagram goes down, all your people are there, your community's there. How do you them? You just lose all of those connections. So do you kind of keep track of who's there? So at least you know the names. Like, do you try to transfer them to an email list, which is mostly what people chat about, is like, make sure you have an email or a way to contact them outside of something that's not owned by you. You don't want to share customer information when you are selling products, or like, I know I talk about this in the book too, like people get excited when they're like, oh, this person from California ordered my book, and they'll say their like full name or they'll show their shipping label. And I'm like, oh, back, like you cannot expose customer information. Those are just a few.
Yes, but those are biggies. But very like ding, ding, like very, it seems obvious. But then I think we also get so happy that something's working that we forget to like take care of that risk that's out there. Because if it's not happening yet, it's almost like preparation, right? It goes back to that preparation, the planning, the think like, what if this happens? I think the what if always has to be answered.
Coming back to what we were talking about. Beginning was like risk can be scary, but sometimes doing these risk assessments shows you that you actually do have a lot in place. Like it almost proves to you like, actually, I'm doing the right thing. I have my risks covered. So most people think like it's going to be a risk assessment that shows all these bad things, but sometimes it could just prove to you that you're doing what you need to do.
Love it.
Yeah, being positive. So it can be positive as well. And that's what I try to tell people as well. So don't shy away from risk.
Again, I think the cultura and our upbringing makes us really good risk takers. I think we've always had that unknown. Okay, you have to do this. I have no idea how. Okay, I'll figure it out. And then you have to go through all these scenarios. This book, it just needs to be purchased. It needs to be read. I mean, I feel much more comfort coming out of it than I do being challenged on my risk, either personality or the voids that might be in our business. How do you purchase the book?
Yes, so the book will be available anywhere that you can purchase books. I recommend the local independent bookstores if you can support them. But obviously it will be on the big behemoth that exists because they do sell books as well. So however you can get your hands on it, do that. And I will appreciate it. Yeah, so it'll be available anywhere. Go and pick it up.
Is this something that we could request from our local bookstores if they haven't heard about it or expose it?
Amazing question. Yeah. So there are millions of books out there. And so it's like to get it into a bookstore, the easiest way is to request it at your local bookstore. So wherever you have a library card, like you can head over there and you can ask them for a request form. And then you can request the book. You just need the name of the book and the author and then the ISBN number, which is available. So yeah. I would appreciate that. If we get it in as many libraries as possible so that it's accessible for people, that makes it even easier.
And will this be out on audio? Will it be out on ebook? Will it be?
It will definitely be an ebook. So ebook and paperback are both available. And then the audiobook, there will be one. The timing to be determined. It's been such a huge process and I would have loved to do it with the launch. but it'll help me, do a mini launch later for the audiobook. So it will be coming. I will be narrating it.
Oh,
to that. So you'll have all of the mediums to be able to use.
yes. Yeah. No, okay. You can't get too many presents at once because then you don't appreciate them. So we'll wait for you. We'll wait for that voice coming into our head saying, plan, be prepared. Keep us all there. But speaking of planning, I think we have an idea of very much of your personality, your gratitude, your intelligence, and your vivacity of just going after things, but always considering what needs to be taken place of. What is something that we probably don't know about you that can be publicly divulged?
Like something
that we would never guess.
What would you never guess? Like there's an answer that's coming up. I don't know if it's a great answer. Like there's probably something else I probably could divulge that's a little bit better than that. A few years ago when I had more time on my hands during a specific period that I don't like to talk about much that we all went through. I did go through all of my photos on my camera and I went and uploaded them to Shutterstock. And so I'm like a stock photographer in the background. It's like a little side hustle. I get like 10 cents a picture. So it's not the most lucrative thing that's ever going to turn into anything, but I've sold like 98 pictures on stock photography that you might see out on random websites that are talking about a park or like an air conditioner.
I like that. Oh my gosh. No. Okay. See, mind blown. No, see, mind blown.
If you're looking for stock photos on Shutterstock, if you're looking up something, then it might have like my profile on the bottom. So not something I'm looking to necessarily grow, but it's out there. So if you ever see, I think, I don't even remember the handle right now, but it actually starts with Portequa, but I think it's like a Portequa photo. So that out there.
Yeah.
Photo that I submitted to there and someone is using for editorial purposes.
Oh, I love that. That's a great answer. I don't know why you were worried about it. I think that's a great answer.
Random.
That's my point. That is my point. It's so random. We would never have expected it from you. I love that. How can people contact you? Are you open to people contacting you? Do you have a website? Give us all the deets.
Yes, please contact me. If you're interested in just chatting about La Cultura, my experience, if you want to ask questions, if you want, services that I can help you with, if you want to buy the book or have some feedback on the book, I welcome it. It has, like I mentioned at the top of the episode, been a huge labor of love. And so hearing your comments means a lot. There's a lot of work that went into it. So I want to hear how it's helping you and how you're implementing it in your business, and what kind of risk taker you are. So please go ahead and take the quiz. And if you want to contact me, go ahead and contact me via LinkedIn or Instagram. That's the easiest way to reach me.
And your profile on Instagram is?
Portequa Consulting.
Okay. Yes. Oh, this is going to get very chatty. Now you're inspiring me. Just that last comment. I would love to have an event in New York after people have had enough time to access and read this book. I would love to have this conversation live. And record it. I would love that. Let's have it live. Let's have it filled with like the food, like the cultura vendors. Let's have the beverage. I would love this conversation to be going amongst the Latinas.
Yes.
Because this is
what I want to do with the book events. Like I want it to be a conversation around the themes in the book and like entrepreneurship and comunidad. How can we support each other and uplift? So I'm trying to curate the events like in that way where it's not just like, this is the book, please buy it. Like I'm the author, like celebrate, me and the book. It's really celebrate us.
I love that. And you're bringing up a good point. You are having book launching events for this across the country. How do people find out where they're going to be and when so we can plan in advance to attend them?
Yes. So Instagram and LinkedIn will be the best place to find out where the next event is. And the events I have planned, there are some that are already on the calendar, so you can go and check them out. And then there's some that will pop up throughout the year. So I definitely plan on launching and doing the full book launch year that they, tell you, the hybrid publishing companies tell you to do, because you're really, putting your book out into the world and making it have legs and a foundation where it'll go much longer. So the first year, I'll be doing a ton of events, and I want to meet as many of you as possible.
Okay. Well, I'm going to open it to you right here and right now that you come and have an event in Spain. I will host you in Spain, and let's get this full breadth. Let's build that bridge, because
Amazing.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's rise in that Latina entrepreneur success and without major risks and be prepared. Have a lot of fun doing it.
Exactly. Risk does not have to be scary. It doesn't have to be not fun. It's definitely fun. So let's take some risks.
Rosalie, this has been such an eye-opening experience, and I really can't wait to read your book and find out where I stand and how things should be going, but just also to support you. And congratulations again. It's been so great having you on here today.
Yes, no, thank you so much. It's been amazing.
Are you ready for this? Are you ready for taking that big next step? I feel like I should play a Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Karol G mashup right now. Of just women leading the way, showing us how it's done and sharing it. There is no gatekeeping here. Super excited for you to learn how to take risk from Rosalie and find out what kind of risk taker you are. So let us know on social media at Encuentras Your Voice and Portequa Consulting. We'll share notes and find out how to pal up around our risk-taking skills. Get ready next week to hear our lineup for March with women who have been through it, just like you. Understand what needs to change and how to keep improving your innate skills and talent to showcase to the world. These women broke all the molds, broke all the barriers, and are here to take you on your own journey for finding your best self. Because the world, especially right now, needs you to shine in your most authentic self, and for each of us to embrace you in love as you are. Step into your truth. Ciao. We love that you have subscribed to this podcast and continue to champion women who understand the life of all things Latina. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Encuentras Your Voice podcast so you don't miss a single episode. They will automatically drop into your listening device each week, and we'd really appreciate if you take a moment to add to the reviews that we already have. Tell us what you like, tell us what you're hoping to hear, and we will get there. Share this with your friends and family to help us grow our comunidad, and keep following us on our social media to Encuentras Your Voice. We are so grateful to you for helping us grow this community and would love to learn of all the amazing Latinas who you know are creating the world we thrive in. So reach out to me on social media at Encuentras Your Voice, and let's keep leaning into our authenticity in pride. Help us make Encuentras Your Voice the place where you are 100% represented.